Hey there, welcome. Have you ever been stuck writing an email and you just know there's a better word for what you're trying to say? You know, that tiny little difference between saying something is personal versus private, or trying to persuade someone instead of convincing them. Well, it's not just about sounding fancy, it's about being perfectly crystal clear. In this explainer, we're going to unlock the hidden meanings behind 20 common words to give you that exact precision.
So, here's our game plan. First up, we'll look at words that literally shape how we see things. Then, we'll jump into the language of big actions and major events. After that, we'll explore words that have to do with control and structure. And finally, we'll dive into the really fun stuff, the art of persuasion and making connections. Let's get right into it.
All right, section 1, perspective and prediction. You know, the words we pick don't just describe our world. In a way, they actually create it. So let's look at the subtle language we use to define who we are and what we think is coming next.
Okay, let's start with 3 words we use all the time: personal, private, and individual. So, personal is all about your identity, your feelings. Think personal belongings, or that's my personal opinion. It's directly connected to you as a person. Now, private is different. It's about access. It's about who gets to see or hear something. A private conversation isn't about your feelings, it's about the fact that it's just for the people in the room. And then you have individual. This word is all about being unique and separate from the group. A coach might say, the team played well, but the individual performances were just incredible. So you see, one is about you, one is about access, and one is about standing out.
Now this is a really cool one. It's like 2 sides of a coin. On one side, you have the subject. That's us, our inner world, our feelings. So anything subjective is based on those personal feelings. You know, a movie review is totally subjective. But on the other side, you've got the object. That's the outside world, the world of facts. Anything objective is based on stuff that's measurable and not influenced by feelings. A scientist is always looking for objective data. And check this out. The phrase subject to kind of bridges the two. If an event is subject to cancellation, it means an outside force, an object, can affect it. It's a neat link between our inner state and the world around us.
Secret versus confidential. They sound similar, but they're not the same at all. A secret is something you actively hide. You keep a secret. It's all about concealment. Confidential, though, is more professional. It's information that is entrusted to you. It's not about hiding. It's about a duty to protect that information. So a good way to think about it is, keeping a secret is about hiding something, but handling confidential information is about honoring someone's trust.
Okay, let's talk about the future. We've got a few ways to describe looking ahead. To predict is basically to make a guess. It could be based on a hunch or some evidence, but it's a general guess. To forecast is way more scientific. It's predicting based on data and analysis. Think of a weather forecast or economic forecasts. Then there's anticipate. This is when you expect something to happen and you start preparing for it. You anticipate rain, so you grab an umbrella. And finally, foresee is a bit deeper. Almost like an intuition. It's a feeling or a sense of knowing what's coming down the road. Each one gives a slightly different flavor of how certain we are about what's next.
Section 2, actions and big events. So now that we've covered how we see the world, let's get into the words we use when things actually start happening. These are the words of action, impact, and major events.
You know, not all tasks are the same. Let's imagine a team of firefighters. Their mission is to save the building. That's their specific, important goal. Their duty is their moral obligation to protect people's lives. It's the why behind what they do. And the operation is the specific, planned, coordinated action they take, how they actually fight the fire, step by step. So you have the mission, the duty, and the operation, the goal, the obligation, and the plan in action. Here we've got words that are all about a sudden release of energy. Something can literally blow up, like a building, or burst, like a balloon or a water pipe. But the adjective explosive is where it gets really versatile. Of course, you can have explosive materials, but you can also describe a situation as explosive, or even a person's anger as an explosive temper. It's a perfect example of how we take a literal, physical word and use it to describe powerful emotions and ideas. Okay, this is a really common point of confusion. Perspective versus viewpoint. Here's an easy way to think about it. Perspective is where you stand when you look at something. A CEO has a very different perspective on a company than a brand new intern. Now, viewpoint is what you think from that spot. The CEO's viewpoint might be all about the 5-year plan, while the intern's viewpoint is about getting their next task done. So remember, perspective is the position, viewpoint is the opinion that comes from it.
Flood, avalanche, and landslide. We all know these as powerful, often scary natural disasters.
But what's really interesting is how we use them as metaphors in everyday life. For example, you can be flooded with emails after a vacation. You might face an avalanche of paperwork for a new project, and a political candidate can win in a landslide victory. We borrow the immense power of these natural events to describe any force that feels overwhelming.
Let's look at how one core idea can create a whole family of words. You start with the thing itself, the noun, a ceremony, like a graduation or a wedding. Then you have the adjective to describe things related to it, the ceremonial robes or the ceremonial torch. And what's the action you do at the event? You celebrate. That's the verb. See how that works? From the event to the objects to the action. It's a beautiful, logical little system.
Section 3. Control, Tools, and Order. All right, let's shift gears now to the words we use to bring a little order to the chaos. This is the language of structure, discipline, and all the tools we use to manage our world.
So here are 3 different flavors of control. Someone who is disciplined gets their control from practice and routine, like a professional athlete. Self-controlled, on the other hand, comes from inside. It's about your own personal willpower to resist temptation. And then, well-trained means the control comes from an outside source, from instruction. Think of a well-trained service dog. The key difference in all 3 is the source of the control. Is it practice, inner willpower, or outside training?
Let's think about equipment on a scale of complexity. At the simplest level, you have an appliance. It's usually for your home, for one specific job, like a toaster or a blender. Step it up a notch and you have an instrument. This is a tool for precise, skilled work, like a musical instrument or a surgeon's instrument. And at the most complex level, you have an apparatus. That's a whole set of equipment designed for a very specific, often scientific purpose, like in a chemistry lab. So it's all about how complex the job is. Here are a couple of really useful pairs. First, use versus utilize. You use a fork. It's simple, every day. Utilize is a bit more formal. It means to use something in a practical and effective way. A company will utilize its resources to the fullest. Then, on the neatness side, you tidy up a room. But groom is much more personal and detailed. You groom a pet, or a person grooms themselves for a big event. It's about careful presentation, not just putting things away.
This one is a super important distinction between the physical and the mental. You detach something physical. You detach a trailer from a car. You physically unhook it. But you disassociate from a feeling or a difficult memory. That's a mental, psychological separation. It's an internal process. So one is for breaking a physical connection. The other is for breaking a mental one.
And now for our final section, persuasion and connection. This is where language gets really, really powerful. It's how we influence people, how we connect with them, and how we move them to action.
Let's talk about words of force and obligation. Something from the outside can compel you to do something, meaning it forces you. A contract can bind you to its terms. In both cases, the force is external. But to commit to something, that comes from within. It's a choice, a pledge you make to yourself or to others. So the question is, are you being forced to do it, or are you choosing to dedicate yourself? The word you pick tells the whole story.
The art of influence. To persuade someone usually involves an appeal to their emotions or desires. You persuade your friend to go on vacation by talking about the sunny beaches and relaxation. To convince, however, is more about logic and evidence. You convince them it's a safe trip by showing them the data on flight safety. So a good rule of thumb is you persuade the heart, but you convince the mind. It's a small difference, but a really powerful one. Now, on the flip side, what if you want to stop someone from doing something? Let's say your friend wants to start a really risky business. You might try to dissuade them by laying out all the logical arguments against it. If your arguments work and they start to lose their excitement for the idea, you have discouraged them. You've taken away their courage. And if they go ahead anyway and it doesn't work out, you might feel disappointed in the result. Each word really marks a different point in that conversation. Finally, let's look at 3 different ways to ask for something, like rungs on a ladder. At the bottom, you have big. It's emotional. It can be desperate. Then you move up to solicit. This is more formal and professional, like when a charity will solicit donations. And at the very top, in terms of formality and humility, you supplicate. This is often used in a religious context when you humbly ask a higher power for something. From desperation to a professional request to a humble prayer, 3 totally different ways to ask. So there you have it. You see, this is about so much more than just knowing a few extra words. It's about being able to connect with people. When you choose exactly the right word, you're not just understood, you're felt. You can lead better, comfort better, and communicate with so much more empathy. This is your toolkit for building clearer communication. The only question left is,
What will you build with it today?